Hi, I'm Jewel Clark. I'm here with Western Hills Access Television, and Wayne Howe, also with Western Hills Access Television, is behind the camera. It is May 21st, 2019, and we're at Gould Academy here in Bethel, Maine, with Sarah Southam and Maddie Williams, and we're going to have a conversation with them about an ordinance that they co-authored. And this ordinance is called A Commitment to Eliminate Single-Use Carryout Plastic Bags and Single-Use Foam Takeout Containers. This ordinance has been presented to the select board, gone through different committees, and we'll talk about that later, but it will go to the voters on June 11th, Tuesday, June 11th. It's an all-day vote from 8 to 8, and people will go to Crescent Park School and vote as to whether they support or do not support this ordinance. So we're going to find out a little bit about it. So this is Sarah Southam and Maddie Williams.
Hi.
Hi. And Maddie is a senior here at Gould Academy. Sarah was a teacher at Telstar for 16 years and now is pursuing other interests.
Yeah.
And like I said, they are the co-creators of this ordinance. Now, as I understand it, it was back in September, because I filmed it, you approached the select board in Bethel with the idea, wanting to know if they'd be open to you presenting an ordinance. And David Holt was the interim town manager at that time, and he and the select board welcomed the idea. So then you got to work on what maybe you'd already started. So tell us a little bit about what prompted this. I mean, I know you mentioned that it became your senior project, but you would have probably come up at some point in time with doing it anyway because you care. So,
Yeah, I would have started the project at the same time anyway. After I started the project, I figured it would be a good idea to use as my graduation requirement for my senior project.
and you have gone to school here for 4
4 years, yes. I'm a 4-year senior.
and have grown up in the Bethel area.
All my life.
So, okay. And so you did meet with encouragement from Mr. Holt I thought it was very sweet. He was trying to
Yeah.
explain to you how to go about it.
Yeah.
But you had already laid a bunch of groundwork, right? You said you did did you like survey people in the community, just do some research?
Yeah, so we talked to a couple of businesses over the summer, but we began researching back in May of 2018 and worked with the Natural Resources Council of Maine to hold a screening of the movie Bag It at the local movie theater, The Gem. We had a potluck with the local food connection, had the movie screening and a brief discussion about plastic bag bans and implementing them and why people support them or don't support them.
And we also, I mean, I think we had about 70 people who came to the movie
Yeah.
that night, and we actually did sort of what do you call it, straw poll. Yeah, we asked people, would you have interest, if we were to work on an ordinance, would you be supportive of that idea? And pretty much everybody raised their hand.
So
Yeah,
it was
there were a couple-
investigative research is what you were
Yeah,
doing.
Yeah.
there were a couple of people who weren't Bethel residents who didn't raise their hand because they obviously couldn't.
Mhm.
Right.
But we
Mhm.
did, that sort of gave us the confidence, I think, to move forward with
Yeah.
everything. So,
So, Bag It. So I want to just say right now, last week, I believe it was May 15th, there was a public hearing on this ordinance here at the conference center in Bethel. And that was also filmed by Western Hills Access Television. So if you want to view that public hearing, you could go to westernhillsaccesstelevision.com, go to their YouTube connection, and you would find public hearing and the date right there. So it was during that public hearing that I heard about the movie Bag It. I mean, I'd heard that there was a movie, but I went online to try to figure out which movie, but there seems to be a lot of movies about
about
plastic in the
bags, but
environment.
It's actually
So this is
called Bag It.
Bag
And it was
It.
actually made in 2005. So it's really, like, in some ways, it's like, almost out of date, but it's not, because we haven't done anything.
Right.
We
Yeah.
haven't done enough to solve
Some
the
of the
problem.
statistics are a little out of
Outdated.
date just because things have decreased in health. The climate's decreased in health, so some of the statistics have actually gotten scarier or worse, I guess you could say,
Yeah.
more dramatic. But the main idea of the movie is still very relevant.
And so it was at the gym, and when was this?
It was in middle of July. And
Yeah.
we're actually showing it again because we
Okay,
thought,
when is that? That was one of
so
my
we
questions.
thought that it would be good to show it again with the vote coming up on June
Mhm.
11th. So we're showing it on Thursday, May 30th. And
That's
the-
next week, right?
Yep.
So a week from
This
this
Thursday,
Thursday, yeah.
yep.
Okay.
And people can come at 6, and if they have ideas about ways to reduce plastic in their lives, they could share. You know, we could be in the lobby and
Don't let me come.
we could be in the lobby and just share ideas or
Uh-huh.
bring ideas, and then at 6:30 we'll show the movie again, and then I'd love to. Maddie's going to be away, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But I'm happy to try to answer any questions about the ordinance, and then just if people have questions in general, I'm sure other people can chime in and give suggestions of ways to help.
So that's next Thursday at what time?
6 o'clock is sort of the social time or
Mhm.
sharing time, and then 6:30 will be the movie.
Yeah,
On May 30th.
And we're really encouraging people who know a lot about the subject or don't know a lot about the subject or want to know more or just curious about it. Really,
Mhm.
anybody's welcome to come to this.
Mhm.
There's room for everyone.
Well, that's good to know, because
And I
that was
think
one of my
it's
things.
a really good movie because it's kind of like, it's not a preachy kind of movie, you know, like where you feel like somebody's, you know, far superior telling
Right.
you, you know, that you've done something bad. It's just sort of this like normal guy who's like, how do I, like, I
It's
have
like-
all this plastic in my life. What do I do? And like,
Uh-huh.
I don't want to have it. And
Uh-huh.
how do,
Yeah, it's
and-
just it's a journey of an
Yeah.
average guy
Right.
that starts out not really knowing a lot about the topic and just curious about it, and you follow him through his journey about learning a lot more. So you really kind of embark on the same journey of maybe not knowing a lot in the first place and then learning a lot throughout the movie.
Okay. So, is that only available, I mean, because a lot of things are on YouTube. That is not on there, is it?
I think.
I only ask because someone at one of the meetings one night said, "Did you see that movie?" But maybe he saw it at the
I
gym.
feel like it might be on Vimeo. Is Vimeo?
Vimeo or something. Yeah, that's another.
But
thing.
you.
Well, we know it'll be at the gym
Gem,
next
yeah,
week.
yeah,
Yeah.
And,
So.
yeah, and a woman who came to it last July actually wrote me, and she like emailed a bunch of other people and said, "This movie will change your life." So I
Oh,
mean,
wow.
it really did have
Wow.
an impact on a lot of people.
Well, I know once I filmed that first time you approached the board, and I was thinking about it because I think about trash in general. I have for a long time, and about things that don't go away, and recycling. When the recycling plant used to be up, or the recycling space used to be by the bus garage, I was up there and putting my things in one night, and someone I know came by and said, "Why are you doing all that?" And I said, "I do it for," and I started rattling off all our grandchildren. You know, and this is like,
Yeah.
might not affect me so
Yeah.
much, but it will affect them. But I don't know a lot about it. I don't know, like, I've wondered where does the stuff go, and especially now that I hear that it's not being accepted in China. But, so back to, you went there, and then you started finalizing your ordinance. So the process was then I think you took it back to the select board, and then it goes to ordinance review. It went to ordinance review.
Did we not go to ordinance? Oh,
Yeah, so we had the select board to see if they would entertain it if we drafted it, and then we drafted it,
Yeah.
and I think there was another select board meeting
I think that's how it goes.
for them to officially pass it on to the ordinance
Ordinance
review committee. We then had
oh,
two meetings,
No, I think we went to the ordinance review committee.
and then the select board.
And then,
So it went straight from being passed, I mean,
Yeah.
entertainment-wise,
right,
to
because
the
we went
ordinance
back to
review
the,
committee.
we didn't go back to the select board till February.
Okay,
right?
so
And
yeah.
so we had we had two ordinance review committee meetings. First one where they just asked us questions, right? And I think that was right around Thanksgiving time.
Yeah, November.
And then there was, that's when we included some illustrations of what we meant by expanded
Mhm.
polystyrene. Because our
Mhm.
original ordinance had some language that people might not have quite understood what it was.
Right.
So we included
They
some.
use some of the
polystyrene
scientific
and-
terms,
yeah.
which I didn't know before starting the drafting process of the ordinance either.
Yeah. So, and then we had a second ordinance review committee where we were coming back to really, we were supposed to go, the point of that was to go through the ordinance sort of line by line, and then that didn't happen because they sort of you know, there was a discussion that night where things sort of fell apart, and we weren't able to edit the document, really. And so then we, at the end of that meeting, we just sort of expressed our frustration with us not being able to do that. I mean,
Right.
like, that was the point of the ordinance review.
Yeah, that was
meeting.
the agenda for the
They
meeting.
weren't
And
being able to do their job. 'Cause
And
it-
so
yeah.
then they actually went through a process of coming up with some guidelines for how to hold a meeting. So that whole thing changed, you know, and in the meantime, we were waiting to go back and have our ordinance reviewed again, but then they had to do the marijuana ordinances, and so we didn't get back to them till.
So yeah, we went. They after our 2 designated meetings with the ordinance review committee,
yeah.
the second one, which didn't quite meet the goal of
yeah,
the
yeah,
meeting,
right.
we got sent basically unadvised back to the select board, and they were to vote whether to put it on the ballot or not put it on the ballot.
But it wasn't
yeah.
finished. Yes,
And then,
yes.
but they,
yeah.
but
when
then
they-
we all
right.
kind of came to
Yeah.
the consensus that it wouldn't be fair because it's not fully advised. So a protocol was set through some action with the ordinance review committee, so that they have a protocol to go through meetings, and then and they actually use the protocols first with the marijuana ordinances, and then we had another additional 2 meetings with the ordinance review committee in which the protocol was utilized very effectively, and the goals were accomplished, and
Yeah.
that's when we went back to the select board this last time.
And so it's a process,
Yeah.
a full
Yeah.
process. And
Yeah.
I know I filmed some of them, but I
Mhm.
haven't been able to do all, but it went back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah, I
And
think
some
a lot
things
of,
got changed.
yeah.
But I
Yeah.
want to read first. I think this, I could look at your ordinance, but I know just from the first one that I looked at, certain things changed.
Mhm.
And that was all agreeable through all of you, the ordinance review, and they're not just saying, well, we're going to change. It's a cooperation,
I mean, we've
All
Yeah.
conversation, discussion-based
Right.
changes.
And the feedback we heard when we were at the select board meeting, you know, I mean, there
Mhm.
was, you know, there were clearly some concerns, and
Mhm.
so we tried to take that into account.
Well, I know, I'll just mention one that I heard a lot was there was going to be a mandatory charging 5 cents for a
Mhm.
paper bag,
Mhm.
and that has been removed.
Yeah.
So.
We heard from both the public and the
Yeah.
businesses that they wouldn't support that, so we took it off, and businesses are free to charge 5 cents for a paper bag, but we're not mandating that they do.
Right.
And I think, I mean, our original intent with having that in
was
there
gonna ask
was
you.
to help the businesses cover the cost of paper bags,
Uh-huh.
because paper bags are more expensive than
Mhm.
plastic, and so that's what other towns have done. We were using these models that Natural Resources Council of Maine
Right.
has, and so we
And
kinda-
other towns around Maine.
and so.
And
that-
so sometimes someone might just think they're being told what to do and not
Mhm.
realize you were trying to do something to help them at the same time while encouraging other people
Yeah.
to make changes. But so one of the things that I have noticed, I believe, when I filmed the public hearing and tried to be quiet and listen a lot, is confusion
Mhm.
on the definition, which I believe I found the definition, it's kind of a generic definition. It's not one that you just made up.
No.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I think it's the same. I didn't compare them, but a single-use plastic carry-out bag is defined as a plastic bag provided at the check stand, cash register, point of sale, or other point of departure for the purpose of transporting food or merchandise out of an establishment. Now, if I read it here, single-use plastic bag out of the store. So it's pretty much the same.
Mhm.
But
And
I
we
think,
go on to define store as well, just
Yes.
in case there's confusion about that.
yes. And so, but what I keep hearing sometimes, people will say, well, I use it again. And then they'll say, well, I recycle it. And I think they mean at the time, sometimes they're putting it somewhere to be recycled or they mean they're reusing it.
Yeah, I know.
It's all like they think
I
it's
know.
interchangeable, but technically it's not.
Right.
And so, had there been you didn't make up the definition, but it's like, it's a bag that won't disintegrate, it won't go away. But
right. Yeah, there does seem to be some confusion about the
yeah,
words
I mean, I've
reuse
seen it
and
go back and
recycle.
forth,
Yeah.
back and
Yeah.
forth. I use it 5 times, so it's recycled. No,
No,
it's reused.
and it still ultimately will go into a landfill. And
Right, yeah. If you're recycling something, then often it's changing form. So if
Mhm.
you recycle a plastic bag in its next life, it probably won't be a plastic bag again. It will be probably a harder plastic. But if you're reusing it, you're using that same bag. It's not getting melted down. You're literally just using it again.
So, these bags, what I've wondered is, why do, like I did see at the grocery store the other day, someone at the public hearing said there was a big receptacle for them to go. I'd never noticed it before, but maybe I'd
it's
never
pretty.
looked.
No, it's pretty new because that came up at the selectmen's meeting in December. Is like that's actually a law in Maine. It's
I was going to say, I saw that it was made one.
Yeah.
But
so any store that provides a single-use plastic bag must have a way to recycle them within 20 feet of the store, I think. And at that point, none of the stores I saw in town had that. So I brought.
well,
we brought
it's
that
actually,
up.
yeah, 2010, I think
Yeah.
it was put in. But my question is, how do they recycle them? If they're not recyclable, is it like the bags shouldn't say they're recyclable? Did they used to be recyclable?
Well, I mean, in Bethel's transfer state, like when you go to the recycling center and put it, that does not take the single-use plastic bags.
No.
But the ones that are being put in these boxes at IGA and I think Hannaford's and Norway, all and maybe all the Hanover. I mean, by
Well,
Maine law, they should all.
I think at the public hearing they said they do at Walmart as well.
Yeah. So I'm not exactly. I mean, they may be recycling that material into something else, like transforming the plastic into something that can be used again. But I'm not positive. I mean, I guess we're just relying on.
I mean, because this is stuff I want to just teach myself in the future, and I tried to look up like what happens when you recycle plastic. What do they do? How do they do it?
Yeah.
And I have not been able to find out how they do that with these bags.
Yeah, a lot of the times plastics are melted down.
Into
then-
little pellets, right?
Yeah, melted down into little pellets, and then those pellets are used to make plastics, but it doesn't generally go to the same type of plastic. So the single-use plastic carryout bags are a pretty thin, flimsy plastic, almost similar to like a saran wrap plastic, but then when they're melted down and recycled, they generally go to harder plastics, so maybe like the lunch trays that you find in cafeterias. And a lot of the times that when you melt something down, when you melt that plastic down, it depends on how many times the plastic has been melted down, how many more times it can be melted down. And I'm not sure how many more times a plastic bag can be melted down. But a lot of times when it goes to that hard plastic, it can no longer be recycled.
I think for years the transfer station hasn't taken them, because I used to try to take them.
No, that it has. Well, how many years has it been that we went to single sort?
And it was
About
even
3
before
years,
that, 3 or 4.
But single sort. So I mean, I think because the plastic bags have the recycled triangle on them, that people just like toss them into their single sort, whereas taking them to the IGA and putting them in a specific box, that's a much better option. Something may, happen with it, but when it gets tossed in your single sort, I've been in touch with the woman at Casella, who's the waste management system for Bethel, and she said that, these plastic bags are ending up in single sort recycling, and they get into the machines that do the sorting, and they get all tangled in the machines, and then they have to shut down the machines for 2 or 3 hours to untangle it all. So that's lost time.
Yeah, that's
and,
costly. That's
yeah.
costly.
And so when they put them in with the regular trash, does that trash get incinerated or buried? Do you know?
I asked her that too, and she said both
Both.
happen for Bethel's trash. So that, but I think the majority of it is incinerated.
So
Yeah.
when that type of bag gets incinerated, does it give off toxic gas?
Yeah.
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 I just wondered. I would have liked, you said she did a presentation up here. I would have liked to have seen
yeah,
that.
there was she came and there was like a tri-town waste
Mhm.
discussion. I mean, so there were the town managers and some of the selectmen and a few other people. Dean Richmond, who's doing a lot
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
trying to do a lot of
I want to
food
interview
compost.
him too.
Yeah, you should.
Dean, if you're out
Yeah.
there, I'm coming for you.
You definitely should. He has great ideas. And,
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much of our waste. The weight of our waste is probably due to food, and so if we can get that out of our waste stream, then our costs will go way down.
Yeah.
Well, I know from filming select board meetings that Peter Southam had mentioned your interest and concern about waste in general. And then at the public hearing last week, when you brought up the figure of, I want to say like $150,000 for maybe 7 months, I'm going,
Yeah.
but it almost seemed like it just wasn't shocking to anyone. It was shocking to me, but
Probably people weren't
they weren't focusing
tuning
on it.
in to that number, but we sat down and
Yeah.
Yeah.
we
We-
crunched a lot of numbers and we were kind of shocked.
It was scary.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so it's interesting. It's all interesting. It
Yeah.
might not be preferable, but it's interesting.
Yeah. If you're looking for an economic argument, that's
Yeah.
definitely one of them.
Yeah.
It's an environmental and an economic ordinance.
Yeah.
So what has been the most frustrating part for you people with this? Has it been frustrating?
I would probably say the timeline. It's definitely been a lot working for it on it for a year. It's kind of surprising to me that it's taken this long, and I think definitely those 2 additional ordinance review committees that set us back like 2 or 3 months. That was definitely a time.
Well, it's fortunate, I guess, if your goal was to have it go to vote. I mean, that it at least happened in time for that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
on one of those other committees. It's been nearly 2 years.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
I was thinking it'll be 9 months. When it goes to vote, it'll be like your baby.
Well, that's definitely a good way of looking at
It's
it.
like September to June.
Maybe almost as painful.
Yeah, maybe almost. What has been the most rewarding part of it for you?
I would say all of the support.
Yeah.
All of the people that come out and support it and speak as passionately or more passionately about it than we do. It makes me very happy that
Yeah.
there are more people out there that really care about this, and it makes me feel
Yeah.
hopeful.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I mean, I'm always sort of like watching what's going on with, how people are behaving with plastic bags and stuff. And I mean, I'm always, before doing this, I'd stand in line and they'd ask, do you want paper or plastic? And most people were saying, oh, plastic.
Mhm.
And inside, I'm like, sort of
Mhm.
like, I don't know,
Uh-huh.
sobbing or
Yeah.
something. I just like, no, it does matter.
Plastic's great. Oh, it's not great.
But I can't just start like, I don't know,
Yeah,
in
no.
line at the grocery store and
No.
start like actually crying.
I hear what you're saying, though. I understand what you're saying, because if
Um,
you do let yourself start, it really look like
Yeah.
when after that first meeting, and I was in the store, like I said, I'm looking around going,
I
we're
know.
never going to get out of
of
all
it,
this.
I know.
But we weren't there once. So little steps
Yeah.
at a time for any kind of change. And I think that's what I heard sometimes at that public meeting the other. It's a step,
Yeah.
because I heard good points all around, or understandable points, whether I agreed with them or not. They were understandable. And yes, diapers. I mean, I freak out thinking about all the
I know.
diapers and all the other bags. And to be clear, this is for what they call the single-use plastic bags, the ones that you get when you're buying something and they put it in it, not the produce bags.
Right.
not the bread bags.
The single-use
Plastic
plastic carry-out bags. The
bags.
carry-out bags is
Yeah.
really the main part to look at. The plastic carry-out bags. is
Not the plastic that you get down and put your
No.
plums in.
Yeah.
the
That
ones
has
that
to
you
have
are
handles.
carrying,
Right.
the
Yeah,
handles
handles
to
to
carry
carry
them
them.
out of the store, to carry your goods out of the store.
Now, what about, so there's been a lot of controversy, I would say, on that, some heated discussions. Have you received as much, what would you call it, negative feedback about the foam containers?
Surprisingly
Mm,
not,
yeah,
and I
yeah.
would kind of think there would have been, because so many people, get their coffee in a styrofoam cup in town.
Now, will foam be banned by the state? Did that go through the state of Maine?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks as though the state of Maine is working toward the plastic bags too,
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
the single-use carry-out plastic bag, to eliminating those as well. That's what they're working toward. And how many towns, I have them here, but I'm not going to keep looking at my papers. There's been a number of towns
When we,
in,
yeah,
When we started,
In
it
Maine.
was 14, I believe.
yeah, but
I-
I just read that Mount Desert Island, all 4 towns on Mount
Oh,
Desert
yeah.
Island just
Yeah, so it's
passed
definitely
ordinances,
grown.
so- yeah.
and
So-
then nationally, Boston, Chicago, Los
Yeah.
Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle, Washington D.C., Portland, Maine, New York, Montgomery County, Maryland, and Boulder, Colorado. Some have cities with plastic bag bans, and some are plastic bag bans and requiring fees.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
as we stated, the fee that you initially thought of that's no longer in existence.
When I talked to one of the writers of the Portland ordinance, they went with the fee on all bags. So whether they didn't ban plastic, but they put a 5-cent fee on a plastic bag or a 5-cent fee on a paper bag.
Mhm.
And he really encouraged us to go that way, but at the same time we were hearing the opposite, so we ended up going without the fee. But I mean,
Well,
his
you were
po-
listening to the
Yeah.
feedback from
Mhm.
your local
yeah.
residents.
But his point I thought was really important too, though, is that he said you should put a value on a bag that you are taking from a store, because we kind of get so used to just getting it for free, and when you get something for free, you don't think about it. And
Mhm.
so if there's a fee or a value, like you're going to say, oh, I need this bag, and therefore I'm willing to pay
Mhm.
5 cents for it. If I don't need the bag, then I'll either bring my own or I'll carry my groceries out, or
Right.
I've
yeah.
been charged before in the
Yeah,
past
yeah.
places. I don't know where, not here, but
Yeah.
I have been, and I didn't
Yeah.
really think much of it. I thought, well, that was smart of
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
I think some people look at the fee as, there's a consequence to obtaining a plastic bag,
Uh-huh.
whether it's economic because it's going to the waste system, or environmental because it's going out into the atmosphere or the environment. There's a consequence to it, and putting that fee is putting a numeric value on that consequence. Even though the consequence in either way is kind of priceless, it is interesting to try to put a numeric value on that, and it makes people think more about, the real consequences of obtaining a plastic bag.
and lots of times, many things we don't think about the consequences until
Yeah.
it's brought to our attention somehow.
Right.
So just to be clear too, these bags,
Mm-hmm.
the single-use carry-out plastic bags, if we chopped it all up and we left it in a pile of dirt
Mm-hmm.
for 15 years,
Mhm.
there would still be little fibers. Even if we poured water on it all the
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
there would be little fibers of it
Yeah.
left.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the main points is that fiber gets into our ecosystem, right, and
Mhm.
into the waters.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's nothing to do with the stories about them getting around
Tangled,
fishes
right,
or
right.
birds or
Right.
things like that. They're
Yeah.
little fibers. And I think I read somewhere that we can ingest those fibers, and
Oh, yeah.
that's not good for us.
Yeah. Yeah. Or even if you think about a plastic bag that floats around in the wind and then gets caught on a tree, and after many, many years it starts to photodegrade, and then it goes into those little fibers, and animals can take in those fibers, and then the animals have the fibers, or we can take in the fibers, or the fibers can go into our soil or in our drinking water.
I think they're pretty sure that the fibers are in all our tissue now. I mean, I think they've even found it in mother's breast milk, and I know. You know what? One really big source of those microfibers is fleece.
Really?
Yeah, all our fleece is of plastic.
Actually, I think I've seen that things are made of
yeah,
microfiber.
Yeah, they're made from ground up soda bottles.
Yeah.
So that was a good, way to recycle
Right.
plastic soda bottles. But now they're finding like, oh, when you wash your fleece jacket, like those little microfibers go into the wastewater, and then they ultimately make it into.
So when you're
The
cold and
soil
you
or-
have your fleece jacket on, don't go like, just breathe into it.
Well, and
I
that's
just don't want
Yeah.
Never wash it.
well, and that's where the statistic of 1 in 3 fish caught for human consumption have microplastics in their skin tissue and in their flesh. That's where that comes from, is those plastic fibers. They either photodegrade or it gets washed into the ocean, and it hasn't killed the fish because they're microfibers. They're in the fish's flesh and skin, but we're eating those fish, and so we are taking in those fibers just as they had taken in the fibers, and it doesn't kill us, but research is being done to show that it does have negative consequences in our bodies.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of this research is just beginning of like what's the impact of all this on us. We don't really know, and I think that's the scary part is like it's just everywhere and
That's why
pervasive.
this is a step.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because what's the impact,
Yeah.
and then what
Yeah.
the impact of this and the impact of
Yeah.
that, and
And it is, and I think the most important thing is that we're really not inconvenienced by making this change. Like, I know people think initially we are going to be inconvenienced, but I mean, really, you can carry your groceries in any kind of bag or have a reusable cup, and you're still going to be able to do your normal thing and not.
Well, I've never minded paper bags, except for they're not strong enough. They're not strong as they used to be, because so many things aren't made as well as they used to be. And I can just put my fingers through them, and I don't even have long fingernails. So I have to double bag, but I try to take my bags. I throw stuff in my big pocketbook,
Yeah.
whatever that is, and just try to be mindful. And I had tons of the plastic bags. I thought of making a big plastic bag chair, like a bean bag chair.
Yeah.
I've used them in painting on walls. I did an entire room with plastic bag. Yeah, it's a serious subject, and you haven't had as much kickback, I should say, about the foam containers.
No.
That's
I think,
interesting.
yeah, and I mean,
I've heard little
Yeah.
bits like,
And I
well, it's
think-
going to bleed through cardboard, but you used to get things in cardboard.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think people are as concerned. I think probably, if I were to guess, this is probably just an educated guess, people use plastic bags more than they use the foam takeout containers. Or, if they were
Well, I
handed
know
a-
I reuse mine, but I can't reuse the foam. They would break.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, and
Right.
and a plastic bag probably has more uses after you
After,
use
yeah.
it once than
Yeah.
a plastic
Yeah.
or foam cup does. And I think people, if people were handed a paper cup instead of a foam cup, nobody would be that mad.
Yeah.
I think they probably view the foam containers as more replaceable than plastic bags.
Although for me, the foam container, I think, for years now I've been picking up garbage along our road, and it was the foam cups that really just finally broke me, and like, I've got to do something about this, because they're just all over the roads. And,
Well, I commend you both for wanting to do something. I mean, people always talk about how to make a difference. Well, do you want to make a positive difference or a negative? There's all kinds of differences, and you're trying to do something that you feel is positive. How do you feel when people think you're attacking businesses? How do you respond to that?
I feel bad that they think that we're attacking them. My intent really is not to attack anybody or any organization or institution, and certainly not businesses. I think it should be clear that we're trying to attack plastic.
Yeah, you're attacking trash.
The only thing we are trying to attack
Right.
is plastic,
Yeah.
and it's because it is very clear that there are negative consequences for it, both economically and environmentally. And looking at it from that perspective, it seems as great as a value as you can get to try to replace them.
Mm-hmm. So we can take the bags that people make, or the ones that you can buy, that reusable bags, into a store. I just wondered about this. Can you take the single-use plastic bags back in and have them use them again? But
Yes.
they can't take the ones
Right.
out of that
Right.
box and reuse them, probably because of sanitary reasons.
Yeah.
I'm unsure.
Well, I mean, I don't. Yeah, I don't think.
I mean,
Yeah, that would
I'm
be a
sure
little
they
strange,
can't.
but you-
I'm sure they
yeah,
can't.
yeah.
But if someone
But
said, "I'm going to use my plastic bags forever,"
Yeah.
and I'm going to take them in. Somebody had 20 of them,
Yeah.
and they kept taking them back and forth. They could
They
use
do
them,
so.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so-
it does say that in the ordinance. that
Yeah.
It does, and they can be reused at the farm stands. That's-
Yes.
So,
But if somebody was bound and determined, they
Yeah.
could take their same 20 bags back into the store
Absolutely.
forever.
yeah.
Sometimes I think in watching and listening too is that there are particular people that just don't want to be told what to do, even if a part of them ever agrees with it. They just,
Yeah.
but so I don't know if that's true, but sometimes just in observing, it appears that way.
Yeah, I know. I think that came up at the public hearing that, a few people were talking about it being, this being forced down their throats or whatever.
Mhm.
But
By
I
the
mean,
government.
And, yeah, by the government. And I was thinking about it later that night, and I was like, this isn't being forced on anybody. Like, we haven't even decided. Like,
It's a vote.
It's a vote by all people
That
in
want
the
to
town.
vote.
So
Yes.
it's going to be a decision by the people, not by the government. And to me, it's like, this is how democracy is supposed to work. Like, some concerned citizens in a town or come together and think about a way to improve things, and then bring it to the people and let them decide. And we don't know what the decision is going to be yet, but I feel like this is the right way for laws to come into effect,
yes,
because
right.
They say
if
yes or no.
nobody is forcing it down our
Exactly.
throats, it's coming from the people, and it's going to be voted on by the people. So
Right.
I don't know.
Absolutely, yeah. Part of this process that I've enjoyed so much and has made me really appreciative is that we do live in a democracy where we can go out and propose this. If we were living in a different type of regime, we wouldn't be able to go forward and present this. And so I am very appreciative that we have the opportunity to present this, and very appreciative because, right, I don't think it is being forced on us by the government. It would be, I guess, forced on us by the majority of the people.
Even at the state level, I mean, when they make a decision, will it be voted on by the people, or will it be? I don't know how it works at the state level.
I think it may be voted on by representatives.
Yeah, I think they vote
and
on
even still, we vote for a representative.
representatives, so
Right.
you
So
have the
it's an
opp-
indirect
You
vote.
call them
you
up
have
and
them
say, do
saying,
this, do
right,
that.
Yeah.
which is
so-
when I heard about the foam container one at the state level, I did contact our legislatures. But
Uh-huh. Yeah. So, what would be the most important thing you would want people to know? You could both think about it. And I will say again, while we're here, that on May 30th at the Gem Theater, beginning at 6 o'clock, people will gather, and there will be a showing of the movie Bag It, which is about plastic.
It's an environmental documentary.
Environmental documentary about plastic in general, or plastic bags.
it starts with plastic bags, but I
Mhm.
mean, then in general,
Expands the plastic.
An
in general.
informative movie.
Mhm.
So, what's the most important thing that you would like people to keep in mind?
I would probably say that plastic pollution as a whole, and plastic bags being a part of that, is affecting almost anything that you can think of, either directly or indirectly. If you're concerned about the economy, it's directly affecting fishery populations and the amount that fishery industries can fish, and the health of the fish that they're fishing. And the reproductive success of the fish and the fitness of the fish, and that's very economic driven. So that's if you're worried about the economy. If you're worried about the environment, it's very clear that it's affecting the environment. I definitely don't need to explain that. Almost anything that you can think of, it's affecting. So, and there's definitely something that everybody cares about. And I wouldn't go as far to guarantee, but I can come close to guaranteeing that plastic pollution is probably affecting something you care about.
And I believe you mentioned earlier, we don't know the longer term effects.
Yeah.
We
Right.
only know it
Yeah.
up to now.
Yeah.
Which is still scary. Up to now is scary enough. I might be too
Yeah.
scared to look at the long-term effects.
And it just seems like such an overwhelming problem. I mean, we're going to just deal with, or hopefully we can deal with this one little aspect, but it's just, the plastic is so pervasive in our society. I mean, just everything is packaged in plastic, and it's not going to go, this problem is not going to go away quickly enough. So I don't know. I'm not.
Well, I walked over to school to ride with Wayne, and I forgot my bag of all my little plastic things I've been saving, because I said, no, this is about the ordinance. This isn't about plastic in general, but it's something that I have thought about for a long time. Do I still buy things made of plastic? Yes, I'm not that far yet, but I'm thinking.
Yeah, I was looking at something once that was like if everybody reduced plastic use by 10%, it would be better than 10% going plastic free. And it's just the idea, if you don't need to go 100% plastic free in your life to make a difference, it's the baby steps that count.
Yeah.
If everybody makes the baby steps, it will make a bigger difference than a few people cutting out everything altogether.
Because there really are some really clever solutions to, I mean, like, I don't know, just, I mean, there's using reusable bags and reusable cups, but like, I don't know, like my daughter gave me a bar shampoo, and so now I don't have to use bottles of shampoo, and I mean, so that's huge, and I use a soda stream, so I never buy seltzer or sodas or anything, like, so I have almost no bottles that we generate at home, so there are things that you can do that just can help.
Well, another thing that I've heard in some of the meetings, like either select board or the public hearing, is I think ideally, some people wish ideally that people would do this on their own. Ideally, I wish a lot of people would do things on their own. I know. But we're human beings, and many of us don't.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's, I personally don't look at you people as attacking businesses. I mean, the general public doesn't give out plastic bags unless they're giving them to the farm stands or something. So it's the businesses that have them. I look at you as attacking waste and pollution. That's personally what I look at it as. But I try to pay attention to all the sides. But I'm admirable of you both for doing this, and I think you probably had a passion for this before this started.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah, it's definitely.
you're younger, but you've had a passion for it as well.
Absolutely.
So it looked like a good combination. Is there anything else that you would like people to know? I had all these notes to ask you, but
I think, I mean, I agreed with everything Maddie just said about, the impact of plastic. But I mean, the other important thing is that as consumers, we do have a voice, and I think we need to start taking that responsibility to say how we want to receive the things we're purchasing or consuming, and not just be accepting of, of how things are packaged and given to us. We can, if we start putting pressure on the companies we're buying from and saying we're not gonna, we don't like it this way, then they're gonna change, right? Because they want to sell something we want to buy, and so I think we need to have the confidence to speak up and start voicing how we want things to be.
right.
And if
We just received a package at the station. It came with all the blown up plastic things that you can't really reuse again unless I said you save them in the cellar and then you get a whole cellar full of them and then you go down and you step on them. But anyway, but I value what you both say and what you're doing, and I thank you so much for letting us interview you today.
Well,
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
for-
so
Yeah.
remember the vote is on June 11th, Tuesday. It's all day at Crescent Park, 8 to 8. And on May 30th, there is the movie Baggett at the Gem. So keep your eyes out too, also for the newspaper, for any news there. And thanks so much for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you.